Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Casey Kesselring. Casey Kesselring is the father of Micheal Kesselring, who is a top Oilers prospect. Welcome to the podcast, Casey.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad you could come on, and you're a longtime coach. Let's get into that a little bit. Where have you been a hockey coach?
The coaching side of it, after I was done playing, I moved. My wife's from Manchester, New Hampshire, and I'm from Kitchener, Ontario. I played college hockey in the U.S., played 5 years in the minors, and then moved back to Manchester, wanted to stay in hockey, coached a public high school team, which high school hockey in New England's pretty decent. For 10 years, I had Zach Sanford, the kid that won the cup with St. Louis last year, and a few other Division I players, and then moved on from there to New England Prep School. I was a head coach at New Hampton School for 6 years. So, and then now I'm still looking for other opportunities and coaching split midget teams out here and do spring hockey and all that stuff.
So when you're coaching hockey in the United States at that level, is that a full-time job as a high school coach? Or is it something after school kind of thing that you do extra?
Most of the guys in the New England Prep work at the schools. So they either teach or they work in admissions or something like that. My wife worked full-time at the school and I was already in the hockey business. So technically I was part-time, but it's really full-time work. It's the league I would tell people from back home, it's like a U19 league. So You'll have, because a lot of the kids, the schools will get them to repeat in school and do an extra year of high school. So you can have 19-year-olds. So it's mostly 15 to 19-year-olds that are playing the level of play. Like I know you guys drafted Thomas Missouri the year after Micheal was drafted. He plays at Kimball Union, which is they're like a powerhouse in prep school. So, the top teams, the Kimball Unions, the Salisburys, they'll have 8, 7 to maybe 10 Division I committed kids or kids that'll play D1 down the road on their team. And they'll have some good Division III players, and your fourth line guys probably won't play college hockey. That's kind of it's a little bit more disparity where they don't have the depth that like junior hockey would have back home. So the top players are very good. There's always draft picks every year out of the New England Prep. I know the one player Micheal plays with at Northeastern, Struble, was a second rounder.
Yeah.
Year after with Montreal. So they get top kids will play prep. The education's fantastic. You can't beat it. They're international schools. Like New Hampton School has 320 students from 30 different countries and 30 different states. So the education piece is great, what the kids get of it besides the sports, but sports are also pretty big at those schools, and hockey's one of the big sports.
So what's your kind of, as a coach, what do you, at that level, what's your focus? What are you really working on?
Development's the biggest thing. You have kids have different goals. Like you have a player like a Missouri or a Micheal that, they want to be Division I hockey players. So you have those kids that want to be D1 players. Scouts are at our games. And then you have guys that come in and they know they're going to be Division III players, and that's okay. Some of the top academic schools, like you'll hear them talk about the NESCAC is like the Ivy League of D3. So a lot of kids will come to prep because they want to go to a NESCAC school, which is like Williams, Amherst, Middlebury. The hockey's very good, and they're some of the toughest schools in the country to get into, and they take a lot of prep school kids. So you have other kids that maybe hockey's their second sport. They might be a lacrosse. I coached a couple national champions that were national championship lacrosse players in college, but they played hockey their whole life, and they'll play prep school hockey before the lacrosse season. So it's a pretty cool environment.
So do you have other kids as well, other than Micheal?
Yeah, I have a daughter that's a basketball player. She'll be a senior next year in school. And then I have an 04 that's a hockey player. So Mason, my youngest is Mason. So we're going to Cushing. My wife took a job at Cushing Academy. So people might have heard Cushing's a pretty famous prep school. I've had a lot of Olympics and NHL guys. So he'll play at Cushing next year for Coach Jacobs.
All right. So you coached Micheal yourself. You coached your own son. Just tell me about his development when he was in high school. Because I noticed it's not unusual for players to get more points each year in high school, but Michael's certainly did that. He seemed to take a bigger offensive role, at least from the stats. So just tell me about his development as a high schooler.
Yeah, coaching your own son can be a little challenging. I actually coached him since he was little. So he was one of the kids that was really good. Like we were in Edmonton. He played in the Brick for John Tonelli with the with the Connecticut Yankees when it was his Brick year. It's actually funny. You look at the draft, you see all the kids that play in that tournament. It's pretty amazing. But And then he was always really good younger. He was a late bloomer, kind of like I was, as far as hitting puberty and maturing and growing. So he came into prep school at 5'10", 135 pounds as a true freshman. And a lot of true freshmen can't play prep school hockey. And I remember my assistant coach looking at me going, we got to play Micheal. He's our sixth best guy. And we put him with like a 96 that was 6'3", 220. And he kind of protected him. And his second year, he was definitely felt more comfortable. And by the time his third year, every year he just kept getting better and better. His third year, he was, really good playing first unit power play. And we had his defense partner is a kid from Fergus, Ontario, Luke Albert, who's at Brown now. And, they were really good together. And then his senior year, he was just, he was one of the better guys in New England. So it was just, he came in playing young and then he got more ice time as he got older. And, that's the thing about prep school. The top kids play a lot. You got to play your top guys a lot to win games. So he got the opportunity to play a lot and develop in prep school.
So he went from 5'10" to about 6'4" by the time he was in his senior year?
And his freshman year, about 6 foot his second year, 6'2" his third year, and he was 6'4" his senior year. So he just kept, I remember talking to the college guys, and I could see it coming. And I'm like, listen, like he's big and he's got talent. And then all of a sudden his junior year, that's when all the schools started to really watch him.
How was his skating throughout this whole period?
I'd say it's been pretty good. I think it's always hard for bigger defensemen. They take more time to develop and get your legs under you. And he's not a thick body. Like you've seen him live. Like you see him out of his equipment. He still looks thin now, but he's 210 pounds. Like we see it because we see him all. He comes back from school. His legs are bigger. Like he's getting thicker. But yeah, he wasn't naturally a big, heavy, like a Pareko that's just a massive man. So, he needed. That's why college is such a great route for Micheal, because he needed time to develop. He was drafted by the Remparts, could have played in the Q, but we were kind of that path, and getting the education was always something that was important to us. And being a New England kid, going to college, playing college hockey and Hockey East is a big deal.
So he's now 6'5", 210, essentially.
Yeah.
It's getting to be a pretty good size for a hockey player, obviously. And so he went to the USHL. And I believe it was he played briefly 1 year. Yeah. And then in his second year, he took off halfway through the year when he got traded. What happened there? Why the sudden improvement in statistical performance?
He was drafted by Des Moines. So at the end of his prep season, we had already arranged it that he would go out there and play. Yeah. I thought it was important for him to get used to the level. And it's, the mental side of things. I think the USHL is very good for the Canadian people out there. Like, my aunts and uncles ask me, could they beat the junior BT? I go, no, they could play the Kitchener Rangers, and the game would be more competitive than those teams want to admit. But and the league's very deep too. That's the other difference, because the fourth line kids are going to play Division I in the USHL, so it's really competitive for ice time and everything. So when he went to Des Moines, they had 7D. They were doing a 7D rotation. He was playing okay, and I thought Gene Riley did a good job. And it was just a maturation of a player. Like his ice time went down from prep. He had to adjust to it, and I think the mental toughness of being able to prepare and be ready to play, even if it's less minutes, was important. And then, we didn't force the trade, but they traded him right after Christmas to Fargo, and Coach Eads, who's a Western Canadian guy, he just gave him more opportunity. You're playing first unit power play. I mean, there's no secret. You're a defenseman, that you get points on the power play. So he went there, got 22 points in like 32 games, and ended up being top 10 in the league in scoring for D. So it's all about opportunity everywhere you go. I think that's the big thing. And Fargo was able to give him more ice time, and he just kind of ran with it.
So he goes into his first college year. There's a lot of defensemen there, and there's a lot of, I think 2 of them are fourth round picks. There's a second round pick who's a similar age to him. There's all kinds of other players. I think there was about 10 players, if I'm not mistaken, and 9 or 10 players that all look like they might get ice time. How did he do?
It was really good. He, like you said, they had, Strubal's a second rounder, who's an 01, was the draft. Jordan Harris is a kid that he's played against and with his whole life, as a third rounder by Montreal the same year Micheal went. Ryan Shea was the captain. He was a 5th rounder by Chicago. So, they had 4 NHL draft picks on the back end. So you knew, and they had, other guys that were coming back that are established college players. So we knew he was going to get an opportunity to play, and he went in, worked hard, did a really good job on the PK. So, and then they had some injuries early. Kesselring got hurt, and that gave him, he almost played, I hate to say it, most parents wouldn't say this, but there was a few games I thought he played too much. but when they had a few injuries, but he took advantage of it, and first unit PK, second unit power play, and regular shift, and their coaches would really lean on their top. They didn't have like a set pairings. They would move their guys around a lot.
Okay.
Michael got to play, like he'd play with Harris, and he'd be out with Shea. Like Shea and Harris played a ton of minutes.
Yeah.
They were kind of their top two guys. And then Michael, and when Struble was healthy and Kissling, those guys would rotate in. So it was good. It was, I mean, as a first year guy going into college hockey, you couldn't ask for much more ice time wise.
So on the right side, because he's a right shot. Who else who else plays the right side on that team? Or was last year?
Kissling, Michael, and then they had Jared Bushler's a Montreal kid that a BCHL who was, he was getting interest in the draft for this year. He was the other defenseman.
Okay. Is Kissling, did you say Kissling?
Yeah, Kissling. Yeah.
Is he back?
Yeah, he'll be a junior. So the only D they lose is Ryan Shea, and then they're bringing in James Davenport, who's Michael's age from the BCHL. He's a local kid, and they have another like depth defenseman they're bringing in. But their D-core looks, with Harris and Strubes and Michael all coming back, looks pretty solid. And they have the kid that some of the Canadians might hear his name, Levi, is the goalie coming in. They're already projecting him to be one of the world junior goalies.
So is there going to be a season for that league?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty everywhere in the world, and especially when you're dealing with universities. I mean, I know you guys see it. U of A already canceled their season for this year. CIS has announced they're not going to play till January 1st. I talked to Coach Madigan a while ago, and he's confident they're going to play. Northeastern's told their students they're coming back. The nice thing about Hockey East is the travel is very limited. Like their farthest game is 4 hours away on a bus within their league. So like St. Cloud was supposed to come out and play them, but they've already canceled that. I think you're going to see a lot of the plane trips canceled that are out league games, but they can pick up games with teams in other leagues that are local to them. So I'm hopeful it's going to happen. Right now, I think there's a lot of wait and see with a lot of the schools. As far as, the Division III level, there's been some schools cancel their fall sports, which that's concerning, but we're hopeful they're going to be back and playing. I know Coach Madigan said they don't leave Massachusetts their first 8 games, so they don't even have to leave the state.
Okay, so it's a possibility they're planning to play and
yeah, right now the plan is they're going to play. Yeah.
All right. So, would there be any thought if there wasn't play? I guess you'd have to make, he'd still have his scholarship, right? And schooling's important.
Yeah.
Would there be any thought of turning pro? Like if let's say the AHL went ahead and there wasn't college hockey.
Well, the thing with Michael is he's got options because of his age. He's still junior. He could go back and play in Fargo in the USHL. He could go to the REMP, we could call Quebec, and he could go play as an OA.
Yeah.
The concerning thing for me is you sign with Edmonton, they don't start till January. So and if the college hockey says they're going to start, I think there's going to be a season. I don't see them wiping it out. So even if they delay it, I don't know if that makes much sense, but you never know. I think that, it's just something you got to worry about the rules. Like if he goes back to Fargo, can he come back and play in January? How does that work? If he unenrolls from school and then comes back? So, the school package is worth quite a bit of money. So it's tough in that town.
So he could practice at school too. He could work on his skill set. Like even if they're not playing games, he could have with a college coach who's I'm guessing they're excellent skill coaches. He could have that time on the practice ice and in any case during the fall. Yeah,
they start usually right when they get there. They can go on the ice. I think it's 4 hours a week with their coaches before their season starts.
Yeah.
That's the CAA rule. And then they work out and do all that stuff. I mean, that's going to I know last year was getting old by the time October ran around. So I don't know how long you want to do that. Like you got to let them out, get them playing. But I mean, it's just crazy times. So you just kind of roll with the punches and hope that there's good news coming as far as, vaccine or whatever it is that gets things back to normal.
So, kind of in limited, I've never seen Michael in a game. So in limited viewings, just a dev camp, but both Bruce McCurdy and I were just completely impressed with the player. As we said on the podcast, when we were watching him, there was this weird feeling of thinking like if you didn't know anything about these players on the ice and someone told you, hey, that kid there, that 6'5" kid who can really skate and is really competitive and it's smart, that kid, he was the Oilers' first round draft pick this past year. let's say not top of the draft, but like,
Yeah.
20 to 30. And if someone had told me that, like, honestly, just from that, watching his skill set, I would have thought, yeah, sure. Looks like it. He's got all the tools. Do you see him that way? Do you see him as having, fairly good potential to be a professional hockey player?
I mean, being a guy that played in the minors and knowing the business,
Yeah.
it's way harder than most people think. So I
Yeah.
think he's going to get a chance. I mean, being 6'5" and right-handed is probably going to get him some opportunities.
Yes.
But it's a lot. I keep telling him it's hard work. You got to keep going. I think the mental is such a huge component for all these guys. Like, you look what Ethan Bear did last year. Played in the minors for 2-3 years. They weren't sure. He moves up, had a great year for Edmonton. So being able to battle through and keep getting better and seeing other guys get opportunities, like the day-to-day of playing pro hockey, I did it in the minors. It's not easy. Most people have no idea what a mental grind that is on kids. And especially these days, I find that, with everything, the world's changing and they're just not as mentally tough as they were maybe back in the day. So the kids that can, work on that and be able to roll with the play. That's why I thought playing in the USHL was so important for Micheal. Sit on the bench. Don't get to play all the time. Like, that's important. You got to learn to go through those things and keep getting better. And I think that's the big thing for Micheal, is just I tell him all the time, focus on you. Because he went to Northeastern and, they've got, like you said, other drafted players. He's like, Dad, I don't know if I'm as good as like Jordan Harris. And I'm like, you don't have to be like Jordan Harris ain't 6'5". You got to be the best Micheal Kesselring you can be and see where that gets you. So, just trying to keep him focused on him, what he can control, getting better. Like you said, I told him his draft year, he was ranked 70. I think the first rating, he was 55. He dropped to 75. He's a New England prep kid. There's a lot of unknown coming out of that level.
Yeah.
You knew you're going to drop when the Euros come in and the goalies. He went later than we thought he was going to go 4th or 5th round. I go, Micheal, if the draft was in a year when you were 19, you could probably be, I told him back before the draft, you'd probably be a 2nd, 3rd rounder. Because you just keep getting better, and you don't want to be good when you're 18. You want to be good when you're 22. That's what matters. That's what really. I mean, unless you're Connor McDavid, that's what really matters. Because I mean, you guys know the draft after the first, even halfway through the first round, it's a crapshoot where these kids are going to be 4 years down the road, and that's why the late rounds are important to get sleepers. That I know Edmonton didn't have. I believe they didn't have a 4th or 5th rounder that year that Micheal went, and it was weird. He had a lot of teams. He had probably 4 or 5 teams that really liked him, and then other teams that didn't have, when he went to the combine, he interviewed with about 10 or 12 teams. So we knew there was certain teams that really liked him and some that weren't that big on him. And I said, that's fine. We knew he's probably going to go, and it's all what you do after you get drafted. So the number doesn't really matter. And like you guys said, all of a sudden he comes to dev camp, looks good. He's the nice thing now. It's the NHL teams are so involved with their draft picks. Like when I went to college, they never talked to any of the college guys. You know what they were. You could get drafted out here for 5 years. Now they're coming to your games. Like Scott Housen was at multiple games talking to Micheal. Hey, this is what we see. You're doing well. And I mean, I think for kids, it's great because he gets encouragement. Like he got a call from Keith Gretzky the other day. He's like, yeah, Keith Gretzky just called me today. Like when Paul Coffey was working for the Oilers, I thought that was the coolest. He comes out, he goes, yeah, I just talked to Paul Coffey. I'm like, you just talked to who? Paul Coffey. Yeah, and I'm like, you better look that guy up. You might want to listen to what he tells you. So, so they're so involved. It's such a great process now for the kids.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the other players that you've been seeing. You've seen Missouri play then?
Oh yeah, I coached against him.
Okay, so what kind of a player is he?
Big, lanky, tons of skill. Has to learn to go to the dirty areas, and I believe he's going to play in the USHL this year, and then go to Providence College.
Yeah,
and he'll learn to play in Providence. Coach Lehman coaches pro style, so that'll be good. He'll get once he gets to Providence, you guys will know based on how he does there. They'll get him ready for pro hockey if he's going to be able. I think that's going to be the key for Thomas is putting on weight. He's a late bloomer like Micheal, getting stronger and be able to play more between the dots. But really tall, really good hands, good vision, can score, and I think that'll be the key. I think this year in the USHL will be good for him too.
So when you say he's got to learn, so he's got to get towards the net a little bit more,
he's
screening the goalie, taking the puck harder to the net, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's more of a perimeter player, is what I would say. In prep school, he can get away with it because he's so much better than some of the other kids. Yeah. But, you know, he's going to go to the USHL this year. It's going to be way harder. And he's going to have to learn to battle. And I think that when he goes to Providence, same thing. Coach Lehman does a great job with his guys, and he gets them ready for pro hockey. So,
did he have the puck on his stick a lot then at the high school level?
Yeah, he was
he's used to playing that way.
Yeah, ran the half wall in the power play. Okay. So yeah, he's a real talented kid. More of a passer than a scorer.
All right. So you've seen a lot of. Did you see much of Matej Blumel?
No.
Okay. You've seen a lot of Skyler Brind-Amour, correct?
Yep. I recruited him to come to New Hampton. So I was trying to get Rod. I was trying to use the Notre Dame. I played with his uncle, Mitch, at Notre Dame. So I was trying to use that before he went to Northwood. But big kid, skates well. He got the right message in the car from the dad. So I think he had a really good. I only got to see him a couple times last year. Did pretty well at Quinnipiac. And again, he's with another coach, Rand Precknall, that does a good job with his guys. So I think he's going to be like a 200-foot, if you're projecting out of where he's going to be as a pro, probably a third, fourth line guy that can kill penalties, has enough, like he could probably play all around your lineup, has some skill, big guy that can skate, and, play physical, play the right way.
Okay. So he doesn't have that elite kind of skill at the college level?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. Yeah. Nowadays it's crazy how skilled the kids are. It's like you watch the kid drafted by Anaheim that was at BU. He was an 01 and he was like dominating the games last year. He was the 9th overall pick last year's draft. Played on the World Junior team for the US.
Zegras,
Trevor Zegras. Yeah, made that unbelievable pass to the World Junior. The kid is so good.
He is
Yeah, he's the talent of some of the guys now it's crazy, these kids, what they can do. But
Apoli Rasanen, you seen much of him?
That's the BC, the kid that left BC. They played twice against Northeastern. I was at the first game, which I'm glad I didn't go to the second one because they kind of took it. They pounded Northeastern. It was probably their worst game of the year, but really can skate, can make plays. Was surprised he left BC to go back to Finland. I'm not sure what the story was there because might have been. I mean, BC have so many good forwards. Like after the game, I remember Micheal telling me, he comes up and he goes, wow. He goes, they have 2 first lines, a second line, and a third line compared to the other league. Like they have 14 NHL draft picks on their team. Like they've got kids that are high end, and he fit right in with that group and was a solid player, worked hard. Specifically, obviously, I didn't watch him, but he had a really good weekend against Northeastern when they played against them.
So is he kind of what's Rasanen's game like? What would you say?
I'd say, again, projecting NHL, you'd probably say a guy that, can do a lot. Maybe like, who's the guy from the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Swede? Is it Jonsson? Skater, can play, second line, third line, versatile guy, can definitely skate. He's got good wheels, plays hard on pucks. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in the Finnish league this year.
That was an interesting decision that he made. Because he had another year.
He might have been worried about the college year, and Finland's going to play. He'll get to play a full year in Finland. So maybe it was a development decision.
Possibly. So Phil Kemp, have you seen much of him?
Yeah, big, strong D. Played World Juniors. Steady Eddie. Moves the puck. Doesn't give you a lot offensively, but I think he's a captain at Yale his second or third year. That says a lot about your character at Yale. For Coach Elaine. So I think he's got to be a guy that Edmonton's excited to have in the system. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, just moves the puck, and he's been a real good player for a lot of years in New England.
So the players in U.S. college hockey, there's this kind of situation where sometimes they don't sign with the team that drafts them. So this is always a concern. Well, it's been a concern in Edmonton. Edmonton's lost a couple players in this manner. The latest one was John Marino. Who it's interesting. John Marino didn't have the best stats. Did you ever see John Marino much in college? What was he like?
He's at Harvard. He's overshadowed by Fox because Fox was dynamic. Everybody was talking about him, and it's kind of almost like Makar and Mario Ferraro. Like
Yeah.
Ferraro was kind of overshadowed by Makar, and then he stepped in and played in the NHL this year. So, Marino was kind of that same mold, more of a steady, stay at home, move it. And he went to Pittsburgh that had a need and filled the role, and, had a great year this year. And just to get to your point about the college guys, I think that's it's a thing. It's just the way the rules are. If you play in major junior, you have 2 years to sign. If you don't sign, you go back in the draft. For a college kid, you have your clock starts, you have 4 years. So like Micheal played a year in the USHL, that counts as a year. He's done his freshman year. If Edmonton don't sign him after this year, he could play another year, and then he could do the same thing. He could become a free agent if he wants. So I guess it's an advantage to the players that they have. They call the guys that go college. If you're going to be, especially the mid to late rounders, it gives you more time to develop. And all of a sudden, if you take off and the team that drafts you doesn't look like they have a good situation for you, you can say, like Jimmy Vesey's probably the biggest example of it, because there was a lot of attention in the media when he did it. And then you saw Fox's agent get him traded from Carolina to New York. At least Carolina got something back for it, but that's a decision the schools have to make. And I think a lot of it too is with the CBA, the kids can't get much coming out. Like the rookies don't get much. It's not like they can say, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of money because we want you really badly. Everybody almost gets the same amount. So the money's not enticing. So some guys will just sit back and decide where they want to go. As far as Micheal goes, being drafted by the Oilers, being from a Canadian family, we have no problem with that. And if they have a good opportunity for him, we'd be excited. How can you not be excited to play with two of the best players in the world if you have a chance? It's more about opportunity. What's their depth chart look like? Most guys are going to start in the American League. Are you going to be able to work your way up? So, that's something I kind of leave up to Michael's agent, Matt Cater, who's done it. He's been doing it for a long time and knows what's going on. So, and how well he plays next year. How does Edmonton, where do they see him? What can they offer? And all that stuff is out of my hands. But I think that's the thing about the college guys, that it's good they get more time to develop. So the NHL team isn't put the gun to their head to bring them out when they're 19, but they can lose some guys too, depending on how they want to play it out with their agents.
Yeah, so a few other high-profile examples of this are Justin Schultz, who the Oilers signed because he went the free agent route, and Riley Nash, who the Oilers lost because he didn't want to come here. So sometimes it works out. So in Michael's case, what year is it that the Oilers have till the end of his junior year?
They have after he plays 3 years of college, because he did the year in the USHL, he'll play 4 years. Once you've played 4 years, you can say, okay, we're coming out and we're not going to sign. And then I think it's by August 15th. I think that's the rule.
Yeah.
That he would become a free agent.
So after his junior year in August 15th, he would be a free agent after that. So he could decide to leave college, perhaps, if that was the right decision after his junior year, or after his second year, I guess, too. Right?
Yeah.
So
Edmonton will decide, and
you're always assessing that. He's always assessing that.
I think that's the agent and Micheal talk, and as a parent, I'd like to see him do 3 years, because they do extra school in the summer and stuff. So if he does 3 years, he'll be almost graduated. So it'll be a lot easier to get his degree. If he leaves after 2 years, that's a lot of school to finish.
Yes.
So, and having guys motivated to go back, it could be tough. But at the same time, it's Michael's life. His dreams to play in the NHL. I always say he's majoring in hockey and minoring in school at Northeastern. So
is that right? And his dream really is to be an NHL player.
Yeah, you talk to like a lot of the big programs, like those. It's impressive, like the people back home, what the college kids get as far as strength and conditioning, like the practices. Like his assistant, the associate head coach Jerry Keefe's been the world junior assistant coach the last 2 years for USA. Like their staff's really good. They do a great job, and the development they get. And you talk to NHL scouts. That's why these college guys come to the development camp, and sometimes they blow the major junior guys out of the water, because the major junior guys are playing so many games. Physically, they're not working out and developing. Where in college, you got strength and conditioning, nutrition, they're working out. Those guys are coming in, and they're a little older. They're coming in men, not boys. So it's a different story.
I'm just trying to think if there's another player on our list. I don't believe that there is, of the Oilers prospects that we haven't talked about. Just let me look at the list one more time here. Do you know much about Graham Mcphee? Have you seen him play?
Is he at BC?
Yeah.
That's George Mcphee's son.
He's a winger. Yeah, kind of a gritty winger.
Big power forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen him play. Big body. Like he's more like a, if it worked out in a perfect world, Edmonton's probably hoping he's like a Tom Wilson, like big kid that can skate and bang bodies. You just don't see it a lot anymore. Obviously has good hockey pedigree and plays with some really good players at BC. But yeah, he's kind of more of a throwback power forward type kid.
Is Micheal much of a physical player himself? But how would you describe him?
I think he's adding that more now. I think, like his first year in prep school, he probably didn't hit anybody all year because he was 135 pounds. But I think it's something like, at 6'5", we talk about him like, hey, like you got to run guys like you got the angle. It's going to be expected. You play physical. Like you're going to have to add that to your game. So I think it's not something that comes natural. He's got a real good stick and he's got long reach. So like, he's pretty good at containing, poke checking. Like you watch highlights and all of a sudden he's got the puck on his stick and he makes a good pass and it's out of the zone. So, I think the NHL's become less physical, more towards what he does, which is good for Micheal. But at the same time, every once in a while you gotta lay the smack down. I think Edmonton was excited to see him take a step that way physically this year. I think the more weight he puts on and gets more confident, that's only going to help too.
Yeah, because he's been playing against more mature like last year. He was playing against guys sometimes 3-4 years older, right? Like
he could have had there's kids on his team that are born in 96. You get 95, you could have a 95 last year. It just depends on the team and how they recruit. So most of the college guys are 19 to 24, probably the age of most of now you're seeing the college go younger with some of their top end guys, I think, because they're trying to keep the top end kids from going major junior and saying, hey, come in like a Trevor Zegras, come in, play at BU. I think he already signed to leave and go to time. Like what you see in more one and dones in college hockey. But you're getting elite level talent, the kids that'll come in to do that. So.
Alrighty. Well, that's what I wanted to ask. Any other thoughts or anything you'd like to add or?
No, just appreciate you having on, and we're looking hopefully get the season back going, have something to watch on TV here with the NHL, and hoping college hockey happens, and go from there.
I guess from a player's perspective, like if there is that opportunity in Edmonton, just that thought of playing with McDavid and Draisaitl, like he has that within his grasp, like that could happen in his career. That if he just keeps at it and things go his way, he doesn't get injured and all these things turn out and that's a real possibility. So that's quite a carrot for a player in terms of chasing after something.
Yeah, everybody wants to get points and stuff, and I'm like, it's pretty easy to get points. You just give it to 97 and let them go. Pass it to 29, you're gonna get some points. But yeah, I mean, it's just about trying to keep it in perspective, keep his head on straight. It can happen. A lot of things can happen to kids when they're young, as far as injuries or distractions and all these things that can happen. So, focus on enjoying. I tell them now, I go, I'd give I'd probably give a toe to go back to college for another year and play college hockey. So there's nothing like playing. It's, in the minors, I played in front of some big crowds, but when you're at BU and the band's playing and the chants are going and, that's something it's a unique experience. My mom came down. They won the Beanpot this year, which for people out west probably don't understand how big a deal that is in New England. But it had the largest crowd ever for a Beanpot final. They beat BU in overtime, and they had 18,000 people at the Boston Garden. My mom was blown away. She had no idea how big of a deal that was. It was on national. Now it's on that. And now the great thing is college hockey's on TV, so it's on national TV here. You guys can even watch it. I think the game was on TSN too.
Oh, really?
The Beanpot final was on TSN. I think TSN and the TSN online covered about 5 or 6 Northeastern games. So it was good. Family back home could watch them. And so it's nice. The world's becoming so much smaller with technology. So
can you go on YouTube and watch his games?
You can go on the Northeastern website. They live stream all their games. And then Hockey East did a deal with CBS. So if you go to CBS online, I think like $5 a month, you can watch all the Hockey East games.
Cool.
So, yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, thanks for taking time to talk to me today. I much appreciated.
No problem. Be safe.
You too. Well, we'll leave it there. And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.